All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Let us stick with the theme of environmentally friendliness and talk about another environment related piece of news. This one involves a eco-terrorist attack at the Tesla Berlin Gigafactory. There was an arson attack. Somebody kind of set like a tower or a transformer on fire, and I think it's like more than that because it's gonna cost Tesla, estimated hundreds of millions of euros, or close to 200 million euros, with in terms of the lost business and the damages because they had to shut down the entire factory for a week. In fact, I think they managed to just reopen the factory earlier this week, but they were like out for a week, and there was around 1,000 vehicles left unfinished last Tuesday. It's not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that, which is like right when the attack happened. There were about 1,000 vehicles that just had to be kind of left just in the middle of the production line because the factory had to shut down. So the eco terrorists who attacked Tesla, they named like multiple reasons. Tesla, when they built the Gigafactory, it was kind of controversial too because they had to kind of cut down the forest, and there were a lot of eco activists that were concerned about erasing the habitat of the squirrels and all the other animals that live in the forest that Tesla had to cut down. But yeah, the reason why I brought up this story is obviously you guys know I have some strong opinions about this story as well. But once again, I will leave my opinions to the end. But let me toss a question back to you guys. Like, what do you think is going through the heads of these like eco arsonists, eco terrorists, whatever you want to call them? And like what is the problem with Germany in particular, right? Because I mean, I guess we're seeing kind of similar eco-terrorist attacks all over Europe, and I think Europe has taken maybe like a more hardline stance on environmentally friendliness, and maybe some people are taking it a little bit too far, right? As we can see. But what is the problem with Germany or Europe specifically? Because I haven't even like heard of anything like this remotely like this in like Canada, United States, or like China or whatever, right? Where in places where Tesla have other gigafactories. So what do you think is going through the heads of these people, and what is kind of the problem or the big debate here, as you will?
They seem to be under the impression that this is somehow going to help their cause of eco becoming getting rid of like fossil fuels and everything and being more green in general. I really struggled to see the correlation between blowing up an electrical whatever, what's it, a pylon? Yeah. I don't understand how that is going to assist them in convincing anyone to go greener, especially when it's powering a theoretically greener option, aka Tesla's EVs. So that's a little bit confusing to me. So it seems to me that there's a lot of thought going into how do I hit these bad actors, but then the selection of the bad actors is very confusing to me because I understand that Tesla's obviously going to create some amount of pollution, but I find it difficult to believe that Tesla is the worst actor that they could find, that they were like, yeah, let's go and sabotage something related to. And to be clear, that's not me saying that they should sabotage anything, because at the same time, I'm like, the sabotaging things is also not very convincing. You ever just like break someone's stuff and then try to convince, like, in order to convince them that your argument is correct? It doesn't usually work. So it's just a very confusing thing to do, and especially because like they do understand that it's going to cost a lot of money to fix this, right? And you understand that that money could go other places, right? And that that money could theoretically go to green stuff, right? So it's just like
Well,
the
okay, so
mentality.
again, like to be clear, I'm against all of this, right? I think this is incredibly dumb, but maybe just to play devil's advocate and think of it from their perspective, like Tesla wasn't the only kind of company that they threatened to attack. If I remember correctly, they also threatened like airlines and stuff because, you know, airplanes pollute and whatnot. Which I guess would make more sense. And again, this is not me justifying it. I'm like super against all of this, but um, yeah, I think I agree that it's kind of really peculiar why they decide to attack Tesla and not like, you know, gasoline vehicle manufacturers. But another kind of maybe aspect of this is you know, it's just like a misunderstanding of economics, right? I always say that all the problems, well, not all the problems, but like 95% of the problems in the world are economic problems at their core. And it's just people, maybe they don't understand economics. It's like, you know, some people think that if we destroy like infrastructure, people are going to have to fix it and that creates jobs, right? Which is like a completely dumb argument because like those jobs, sure, you create more jobs, but like that productivity went to going fixing stuff that you destroyed, which means that that productivity doesn't add to the economy as a whole and it doesn't produce more goods and services. You're just replacing the goods and services that were destroyed before. So it doesn't do anything to boost your economy. And you're just, in fact, you're hurting the economy because you're spending money that would have otherwise gone elsewhere, right? But this is how like some people think. And you know, we've seen kind of eco activists blocking roads, which I think is also incredibly dumb because when you block roads, not all the cars on the roads are electric, right? So cars are going to start to idle. And guess what happens when cars idle? When gasoline cars idle, right? They produce carbon emissions. And people are still going to have to go to where they're going anyways. So once the police shows up and clears the protest, the cars start moving again and you just wasted everybody's time. And like, what if somebody has an emergency and needs to get to the hospital, but you're blocking the roads, right? So it's just, there's all sorts of like these kind of problems with eco like terrorism essentially, right? Like I know that word is inflammatory, but like I'm calling it what I see it is, right? Like it's terrorism. And yeah, it's just very sad. But Dom, let me pass the question to you. What do you think?
All right, here come my analogies, my specialty. No, I'm playing. So, like, the way I see it is you have a basket of apples, right? Um, I just think it's so interesting that you pick the apple that's maybe has like a few specks of dirt on the side, but like the apple's still really ripe and it's still really good. And so, what I mean by that is like, wouldn't you say that like Tesla and these quote unquote suspected arsons have like somewhat of a similar view on like, you know, their looks on eco-friendly like environments and etc. So like why not go into the basket of apples and pick the one that's like really bad looking or like really worse, right? You know, like gasoline and companies, why do it on Tesla? So like yeah, it's quote unquote extremely dumb, right? Like, I don't get why they would do that. And to your point too, like when they do these things, like when you do like repairs and etc., like you're just emitting different types of gases or whatever, and then it's just like a ridiculous process, and it goes away from like your economics point too as well. So I just think it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So you guys want to hear kind of maybe Elon Musk's argument against this, and I tend to kind of agree with his argument on this as well. So according to Elon Musk, all of this, like this eco-terrorism stuff, it's a battle between what's called the humanists and the extinctionists, right? So what does he mean by that, right? So extinctionism is like there's a group of humans currently on Earth right now that believe that humanity is a plague against the Earth. So because humanity is it's like infected, it's like this parasite that's infected the Earth. That's like kind of, you know, defiled Mother Nature and all this stuff. the natural conclusion of the extinctionists is to wipe out humanity, right? They want humanity to cease to exist. So things like, reducing consumption in the eyes of like in with the excuse of environmentalism, that's extinctionism, right? Because if you look at the human population growth chart, like the total population of humans have just hit over 8 billion people recently, right? And with more people than ever before, and it's an exponential chart, we're going to consume more resources just naturally, right? Because we have more people. And as technology improves, we're going to consume more electricity. We're going to consume more energy as a result of that as well. So the reason why I understand a lot about this topic is because it also pertains to Bitcoin mining, right? Where we have all these environmentalist groups that are against Bitcoin mining just for the fact that it uses energy. But what they don't realize is that how much energy do we use now compared to the 1800s? We use a lot more electricity now compared to the 1800s, right? But why? Because we have computers, we have telephones, we have all this stuff, that we have the internet, we have all this stuff that uses electricity that we didn't have back in the 1800s, and we have like multiple magnitudes more people than we had back in the 1800s. So that's why we use more technology, we use more electricity. And if we use the same amount of electricity now as we did back in the 1800s, a lot of people will die, right? But the argument is that this is what the extinctionists want. They want humanity to go extinct so that nature can restore itself. So this is kind of like, I think, where the eco-terrorists that attacked Tesla, where they're coming from, is kind of like, we want to take down the infrastructure so that you can stop consuming energy. And if you want to, go even further, maybe it's stuff like carbon tax, right? As I said, like carbon tax punishes consumption. So we're going to tax the hell out of you for surviving. Well, the natural consequence of getting out of paying the carbon tax is you turn off the heat, right? So you don't consume energy at all. But what happens when you turn off the heat and it's negative 40 degrees outside, right? So this is kind of, I tend to agree with that. And this is what I view it as, where the people who are taking down Tesla, or trying to take down Tesla, or trying to take down Bitcoin mining, they hate humanity, right? And they hate themselves to an extent, because they are humans, so they want humanity to go extinct. And this is like a huge battle that we're waging right now, where I consider myself a humanist. I want humanity to prosper and flourish. So I'm against all of this, but this is kind of how I view the conflict, or this debate. But let me toss the question back to you guys. Do you guys think that kind of framing of the problem is accurate? Do you agree with that, or like do you think that there's some truth to it, even if you don't fully agree with it? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
Just like a small note, it kind of reminds me of, spoiler alert, the ending of Attack on Titan. War is always going to happen, life moves on, but that's like unrelated anyway. I guess when you put it that way, I didn't know there was a society of people that just we want all stuff to like just stop, and then nature just went over. I didn't know people were like that. That's kind of crazy. I'm on more the side of let's let society prosper in like the best way possible, like industrialization, like for sure, even if it's like eco-friendly, like yeah, I'm for it. I know I'm just like more shocked about how people are kind of like that. It fathoms me, but yeah, that's just my
Well,
comments.
okay, so if that wasn't the case, right? If it's not like if we don't frame the problem as like extinctionist versus like humanist and whatnot, like what other kind of theory would explain, the motivation of people who want to burn down a electric vehicle manufacturing, right, a facility, right? Because it's already trying to move us towards renewable energy and more sustainable energy. So like, why would you burn that down, right? Or why would you attack, why would you block roads and stuff when that causes more like extinction, that causes more carbon consumption, which supposedly causes climate change, which supposedly causes all of this stuff to happen. So like, yeah, I think that if this wasn't the correct way to frame the problem, then maybe you could come up with another theory. But this is just how I view things, right? So, Tristan, let me toss it to you because it looks like you're dying to talk.
Yeah, I think I find it pretty hard to believe that there is actually a group of any real significance that is advocating for the extinction of the human race. I think in the context of these people, these eco-terrorists or whatever, I find it very hard to believe that their motive is to basically commit mass suicide. Like, so my expectation of their beliefs would be that they believe that global warming, etc., is an extinction level event, or will cause an extinction level event, and that we are going in such a route that they are going to be wiped out, and they are presumably taking extreme measures to do whatever they can to you know, prevent that from happening, aka the extinction level event. So I think that I find it really hard to believe that they're going, yeah, I hate humans, I want us all to die. I think it's more so they're going, I want to survive, I desperately want to survive, and then they're lashing out at perceived adversaries, and that these perceived adversaries, whether they are adversaries or not, they're being lashed out against. And I think that the reaction is not one necessarily of logic. It is more so one of like emotion. It's the fear of this extinction level event that they believe is approaching, which it very well may be, but again, I don't think that their methods are an effective way to prevent this potential future from occurring.
And
so I think that's what I'm thinking.
But wouldn't you say that their actions, maybe they're hasting the demise of humanity? Like, if climate change is really going to cause an extinction level event, but they are destroying these like critical infrastructure that humans need to live, it's kind of like we're substituting a slow death for an immediate death, right? Like, and is that like better, right? Because
to them it might be, because at the end of the day, like if their goal is to prevent the extinction level event of global warming killing us all in one foul swoop, then everyone reducing consumption, and let's be clear, there's plenty of overconsumption that is happening in the world that could be reduced. That being said, that's not really the point here, but I'm just saying, like, it's there are ways that you can reduce that people could reduce their consumption, that they aren't reducing their consumption, because life is a lot better when you consume more of a lot of different things. You know, you want to eat sushi from Japan, that is going to have an additional expense incurred, and an additional carbon footprint. And I think from their perspective, their way of solving the problem is that, you know, maybe we need to regress as a civilization, which again I don't agree with, but I don't think it's necessarily that they're looking at this going, how do we die? But they're going, how do we not all get wiped out? And I think that their understanding of how to do that is to move backwards to when we consumed less and we did more things locally, and that there was less globalization, and that all of this stuff is going on that has made our lives significantly better, but has increased our consumption a lot, that we should roll all this back, and then we won't all die a horrible death of melting from global warming.
Yeah, and that's totally illogical in my opinion, right? So,
and I just want to add on that front, I don't think that this is a logical. I don't think this is logical. This
definitely
conclusion going on.
The fact is, if you roll back humanity to, like, you know, year 1100 technology, a lot of people are gonna die, right? Because people farmed in ways completely differently. They didn't have like nearly the crop yield that we have because they didn't have tractors and machines back then. Like you can keep rolling humanity back, and that will for sure reduce our energy consumption, but a lot of people will die. And arguably I would argue that that would eventually also cause the extinction of humanity, right? So like this whole argument, this is what I mean by extinctionist versus humanist, where they're coming from, like, these eco-terrorists, they're coming from a fundamentally extinctionist point of view, and this is like that's what makes them that's what should make them the enemy of the public, because they literally want like humanity to fail, right? Like they're literally anti progress and anti prosperity. So yeah, I totally agree with Elon in this, when he says that there's a huge battle going on between these two sides, and yeah, it's just again, it's coming from a point where I think it's a lack of understanding of economic models as well, where it feels like we're fighting over scraps of the pie instead of trying to expand the pie, right? So it's all about, we only have so much energy available to us. We only have so much, resources available to us. Let's fight over the scraps. And if you're getting like a 0.01% bigger piece of the pie, then you're the enemy, and you should redistribute that piece of the pie to everyone who has less, right? Versus what I'm advocating for is, let's not fight over the scraps. Let's increase the size of the pie, because the amount of energy, the amount of resources that are available to us is also going to increase as technology increases, right? So back then we didn't have solar panels, and now we do, and now we unlocked a new source of power. And then in the future, as humanity progresses, maybe we'll unlock nuclear fusion as a way to generate more energy and more electricity. And then after that, we can talk about like Dyson spheres and all that stuff. But that's probably going to be way out in the future. But what I'm saying is that humanity has the potential to increase the size of the pie for everyone, right? We don't need to be fighting over these scraps. And what these like eco-terrorists and what these people like blocking roads and blowing up Tesla factories, what these people are doing is fighting over the scraps. And this is just a fundamentally toxic point of view. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say to that.
Honestly, they're honestly just on heavy drugs. No, I'm kidding. I think it's like it's giving me like flat earther vibes, you know? It's just like they're totally delusional, like not thinking logically at all. And frankly, it's just ridiculous and pretty dumb.